Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today is August the 21st in the year of our Lord, 2023. And we have 2 more days to go before the opposition party starts to debate, starts to hold its first primary debate to um, give us a better idea of, or an opposing idea, if you will, of how America should be ran or how America should be governed. Um, and we look forward to seeing what those ideas are from each and every candidate who's running for office. And we'll, begin to break it down as the debates are held, to keep Democrats in particular and all American voters in general in the loop, up to par as to how it's really going down. Because, these politicians have a way of speaking, um, to the point where if you're not really aware of how to read between the lines, you won't really know what's going on. You will come out more confused than you would be having a clear understanding of what their idea of governing America, looks like from a Republican point of view. Now, history is watching to all of my fellow Democrats and those independents who feel as if, the Democrats have a better path forward for America. History is watching to my fellow Democrats. And so, we can't, begin to feel any kind of ways tired. That's what Republicans would love for us to do. Trump is wearing on us. Trump is overbearing. Trump is ever present still. And so, you can begin to have your faith shaken in government, as to say, we voted him down twice, more than once. And in some kind of way, he's still around. He's still hanging around like a bad cold. But, as I said before, we can rest assured that if we show up as we have, in the last couple of elections, we can vote this down once again. Vote this idiocy out of Washington, D.C. And hopefully, this will be a once and for all, situation. We feel here at Soluble Opposition is that the former president is not running, for a desire to do the best that he can for America. It's more for a personal benefit, we feel like here at Soluble. We agree wholeheartedly with former Congressman Will Hurd, on the campaign trail here a couple of weeks ago in Iowa, when he's firmly stated that the former president is running to stay out of prison. And so, we have work to do. There's no time to be discouraged, disillusioned, or any of the sort. History is watching to see, where America goes from here. And let me reemphasize, we're 247 years in the birth of a nation. We're 247 years in. Founded in genocide, made in slavery. America. And so, there's been a lot of pain. There's been a lot of heartache. There's been a lot of innocent bloodshed. There's been a lot of murder. There's been a lot of war. And we're still here. And you would think that with 247 years in, we would begin to, hone our American democracy skills more and more and more. But yet, 247 years in, and there's a serious threat to democracy, to the rule of law, to the system of checks and balances that the framers put in place, that would lead the nation, as a guideline to be governed by. It's under serious threat. It's under serious attack from the leading candidate for the Oval Office on the Republican side. And, as Democrats, we can't get caught up. We can't get caught up. And I can't help but to keep saying it. The white noise is there, and we just can't get caught up in it. Before we, take that deep dive into the debates that are coming up on Wednesday, we want to take time out to touch on something that's still going on with Senator Tuberville, holding up military leadership slots, because for some reason or another, I'm not inside his head, and maybe our fellow Republicans can help us with this, but for some reason or another, the senator seems to think, the distinguished senator from Alabama seems to think that a woman's right to choose is more of a threat to national security than having these leadership slots filled. So the military can continue with serious training, serious planning, serious deployments. For whatever the reason is, we can't understand it here at Soluble, because forever and a day, the Republicans' position has always been, a strong military. Over and over, you see it over and over again with each election cycle, year in and year out. They champion one of the things that, that they stand for, that they champion, is a strong military. And so, why some of the senator's fellow Republicans here on the right, won't go into private conference with the senator to let him see how dangerous and how much, this sets the country back. Are there other ways that this can be handled? Which is simply, as I've stated, a woman's right to choose in the military. And we have to admire a woman who signs up, because, it's a position, you're signing up to fight for the country. Let's not kid ourselves. You're signing up to put it all on the line in the defense of America. First and foremost, no matter, what your job may be, no matter what your MOS, you're signing up first and foremost to defend democracy. A very admirable quality, that should be bestowed, that a woman has, first and foremost, to want to fight for the country. And there are so many things we can't help but, to say it again and again. There's so many things that, goes into a woman preparing herself to go on that journey of being a soldier, of being in the military. And there are complications there that we as men, we have to come to terms and come to grips, with the fact that we don't understand. And so we're very taken aback. We're very confused here at Soluble as to why this has went on for so long with, a party from the right. And as I've stated, that champions a strong military. What is going on here? A woman knows what's best, what she's feeling inside. She knows that. She knows that better than anyone else, especially her male counterpart. And as I said, we have, in light of the fact that there is, sexual assault that happens in the military. We don't know, to what the levels are. It's been, broadcast here in the past. We've seen it. We've read about it. We've seen it in local reports, national reports. It exists. It exists. And, that's totally on the male soldier. Leadership from the top down, whether it be male or female, but especially male. That, we have women in uniform serving the country. and their fellow soldiers, can't respect that, can't behave, can't, carry themselves in a manly way with respect for a woman, her mind, her body, her soul, the complete being, as woman. And so they're being assaulted, they're being targeted for assault, harassment, and they already have enough to deal with, in focusing on the mission, focusing in on their job, in the military. And so, we have Senator Tuberville here taking a strong stance against a woman's right to choose in the military, in light of the fact that, sexual assault is an issue in the military. And you would think that, if the senator could, look at this through that lens, if you will, their immunizations, there are a number of immunizations, and I'm pretty sure there are way more now than it was, way back when I went in the late 80s, early 90s. This is something that a woman has considered when she's carrying a child. And so, we feel like the senator is just, totally tone deaf on this issue. We need these military slots filled, for the sake of defending the country. We have China out there, we have Russia out there, and they all want to replace us. They all want to be where we're at as a country, leading in the world. And yet, the senator is holding up, by all accounts, leadership positions that affects deployment, that affects families' ability to, settle into a new permanent duty station, or a new duty station, if you will. And it's just, how much further will it go? How much further will it go? And so Democrats in Alabama, our fellow independents in Alabama, take a long look at this. And the fundamental question should be, is a woman's right to choose in the military a greater threat to national security than having these leadership spots remaining vacant? This is more complicated than Downset HUD. This is way more complicated than Downset HUD. And, to his credit and or discredit, maybe the senator doesn't understand that. Maybe he doesn't understand the gravity of the situation when you weigh the two. What is the greater threat to national security? And if we can come to a conclusion, come to an agreement that it is having these slots remaining vacant, if we can agree that that is a greater threat to national security, then let's move on. And we can always, debate this at another time. We can always bring it up. He can always bring it up in the Senate. And if he has the votes there, so be it, for whatever legislation that he wants to bring forward or change. This is the way it's always been done. And, it takes two to tango. So, at Soluble, our goal and our mission is to try to solve, try to ease, the gridlock, and get more of a working across the aisles, if you will, which is like it was back in the days, before this contract with America that former House Speaker Gingrich brought forward. And the politicians ever since have drifted further and further apart, where there's no compromise. There's no reaching across the aisle. So we're appealing tonight here at Soluble to Republicans on the right to, huddle up, if you will. And hopefully, common sense can prevail here, to let the distinguished senator from Alabama help him to realize and see, the damage that he's doing to military readiness, which is, a grave threat to national security of the country. And that's a talking point for these vacant slots that are in the military. And we're gonna call balls and strikes, as I've always stated, like we see them. When we see the Democrats going astray, right here at Soluble, we're gonna pounce on it. We're gonna pound on it, as we told you, during our last broadcast. Touching on A.G. Garland caving in and appointing special counsel to look into Hunter Biden, and the Republicans still wasn't satisfied. I mean, we're not perfect by no means, but we're trying to get that old way of politicking back in Congress. And we need these two parties working together. Now, the Republicans are governing from a position of arms folded, and has become the party of no, thinking that it will, when they're not in power, they can bide their time and, they can muddy the waters up with the president, go places that were in days of old, in times of politicians working across the aisle, it was taboo. It was a no to go after a sitting president's family. But I guess with Republicans, desperate times call for desperate measures. They can't come out and attack on policy. So, if they're going to govern from a position of folded arms, then Democrats, we know what we have to do. We have to go for this blue wave in order to move the country forward. And we're going to touch on, Republican policy, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to climate change, the domestic situation, the social situation right here at home, Medicare, Medicaid, anything having to do with the prescription drug industry. We're gonna touch bases on all of it, going into the primary debates, going into the election for 2024. And our position here at Soluble, we feel like, we're going to push back, for everything that the Republicans are championing as a way of governing and as a way forward for America. We feel like as Democrats here at Soluble, we can bring two things to the table that will say that we have a better idea. We had a better vision. Now, we researched the former president's, record. We look for, good policy because, as I've said, we're for whoever the president of the United States is. We're championing Democrats and we're staunch Democrats. But at the end of the day, if our numbers are not there and the president of the United States is from the Republican Party, we want him to succeed. First and foremost, we want success there. We don't want failure. We're not rooting for that, because when any sitting president in Oval Office is failing, then we as America, as a country, is failing. As citizens, we're failing along with that. And, we saw, regrettably, how, the MAGA movement hurt America's reputation around the world, with that type of leadership. And as I said, history is watching. So Democrats, we have to stay geared up. We have to focus on our mission, our agenda for working class America and growing the economy from the middle class on out. Strong foreign policy. After, thoroughly reading over, some of the things that happened under the former Trump administration, we here at Soluble, we had to weigh the balance of the threat to democracy. And once we looked at, the threat level to democracy that the former Trump administration posed, then it made all of his accomplishments, whether they were good, all the things that he done, whether they were good or bad, and we only want to focus on the good. But it all pales in comparison when we think about the lack of respect that the former president displays for the Constitution, for the system of checks and balances that we have to move this republic forward. So, in looking at the president's accomplishments and looking at the threat that he poses to democracy, we feel here at Soluble foolish to go there. It's really irrelevant because of the threat level that he poses to the republic. We have to address it. And so, what good is, for example, a president who has a good jobs record, who has a good record on the economy or the military or, deficit issues? What good is all that when we have social unrest from coast to coast? When we have the nation's capital run amok with corruption, people who are privy to top secret information who may not even have proper security clearance. And I'm pretty sure, there's a lot of American citizens like us here at Soluble, who didn't know really what to expect from day to day on a lot of occasions when we came home to turn on the TV to watch the evening news during the former president's time in office. So if the Republicans are going to continue to govern from a position of folded arms, what else can we do as patriotic Americans but rally for this blue wave in order to keep moving America forward? Now, we've stated before the midterm elections that if the Republicans gain any majority, then we were going to be flooded with investigation versus legislation. And so here we are at this current and present time. Here we are. We're investigating the investigators. Investigations run amok. Meanwhile, in the meantime, we're dealing with death and destruction by heat, death and destruction by flood, death and destruction by wind. All around us. And first and foremost on the Republicans' agenda is to go on this fishing expedition that is Hunter Biden. And what makes it so dangerous for America is that this is how it's happening now because the Republicans are, they're grasping at straws in a last-ditch attempt to sell a message from yesteryear when we as a country and basically the world has moved on. The Democratic candidates who are in office, who are running for office, well, primarily our sitting president. And any Democrat who runs for office, we have to see this pattern here of, there's something sinister going on. This can't be. How does lightning keep striking so often with the candidates that we put in office? Now, no one's been charged. No one's been, held accountable in any kind of way. Maybe a fine here or something of the sort. But this clear and present danger of, laptops with secret emails and hush money being paid here and money being paid because of Biden influence. And thus and thus and thus and such. How does it come to be? How does it come to be where, every candidate that we put forward, is flawed in some kind of a criminal way? And all this coming from a party that loves this country and at the same time looks the other way when the former president is violating on a regular basis, attacking our system of checks and balances on a regular basis. And yet, here's a party that can investigate and find all these things that Democrat politicians are doing. But yet and still, there's nothing going on in the Republican House that they need to clean up. There's no trash, litter, or filth around their own door that they need to sweep up, mop up. It's only in Democratic circles. Now, thankfully, as Democratic voters, most independents, know better. And, going forward, we're going to encourage the president to go more and more dark Brandon, as he possibly can without, getting down in the dirt with Republicans. But this definitely calls for a situation, if there ever was a time, for dark Brandon to come forward. Now, those of you who, heard this thing, know what this thing as far as let's go Brandon being some kind of a euphemism or another way of saying, F Joe Biden. And, that's kind of where it stems from let's go Brandon to President Biden pushing back and, putting on the cape and becoming dark Brandon. And so, regardless of what the Republicans are or aren't doing, we're encouraging the president now, the sitting president, to go dark Brandon. As much as it calls for in order to save the republic. It's in, our hands still. We control 2/3 of government. I can't help but to say it. And, as long as we're doing what the American people put us in power to do as Democrats, that's all we can do. And you see the president, at work, busy, has his sleeves rolled up to date in Maui, and one thing that we know as Democrats, and another reason why it's important that we, get out here and are ready to rock the vote. One thing, a refreshing thing that we see in our president that we have today, and what we feel here at Soluble is a good quality in a leader, and it distinguishes the current president from the former president. The current president as a leader, and it's a great quality to have, will listen. A great leader will listen to the voice of the people. And we know this is something that the former president, is not good at. He's a know-it-all. He's an egomaniac. He does more of the telling and very little of the listening, because he's always the smartest person in the room. And so, we have work to do. We have work to do as Democrats. There's going to be some serious pushback here. There's going to be some serious pushback starting on Wednesday. Propaganda, half truths, and that's what we're here, at Soluble for, is to try to break it down so it's not confusing, to the average everyday voter who is not sure, and we've had wavering in the past, whether Republicans come out, so strong, championing this strong message, and we can easily start to think that, well, maybe the Republicans are on to something here, but it's the same thing. It's the same old, same old. And with the debates being held Wednesday, the primary debates beginning. We'll take a cautious ear and a careful eye to look and see, are we hearing anything different for the sake of the country? Where is it moving us forward or backwards? We remember trickle down economics. We remember repeal and replace. And these things, never really came to full fruition for the everyday average American. Is that to say that, things are where they should be now? No, that's not to say that. We know that Democrats have historically had a better record with the economy, moving America forward economically. And it's always a work in progress. It's always a work in progress. The president, he has a lot of influence on the world markets when he speaks, but he doesn't control them. And with that being said, we know that President Biden is doing everything that he can to grow the economy from the middle class out, just like he said on the campaign trail. This is not say one thing and do another. The president has, championed the middle class, campaign growing the economy from the middle class out, and that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. And so here we are. Here we are. This election is very important. More important than past elections because, we're living in a different time now, especially with our climate, with world markets post-pandemic. And, we don't need someone coming in with no knowledge of the situation, on the job training, green as a pool table. And this is what, we've got. That's got us to this point. The Republicans, after seeing that the former president wouldn't transform, if you will, and become more presidential once he was elected in 2016, they stood silently by. They buried their heads in the sand while the former president run roughshod over all the good things that America stands for. And that's, the president had a vision. And it's what every president who comes into the old office does. They have a vision. They have a plan. Now, little did we know then, but we see now with the hindsight that this Make America Great Again wasn't a movement to take all of America forward. This movement was to halt things based on the fact that America had put the first African-American president in American history in the Oval Office. And so this was post-Obama to say, let's hit the pause button on this, equality, liberty, and justice for all. And let's take America back to a time of turmoil, bloodshed, social unrest. And we had 4 years of it. We voted it out. And lo and behold, it's before us again. Now, we have a duty to all those Americans who came before us, who stormed the beaches of Normandy, who fought in the jungles of Vietnam in defense of liberty, in defense of democracy. They are no longer here. They no longer have the power to cast a vote. And so, we're 247 years in to a young republic. History is in the hands of those of us who are still alive and breathing. And we see what's before us. We see it. And as I've said, we want to look at the president's record, the president's accomplishments, but does ethics matter? Does civility in politics matter? Does integrity in politics matter? And this is what we're voting for. This is what we're trying to suppress as Democrats in order to keep democracy alive and well. Right now, it's being challenged to the point where, it's on life support. And we have a former president who is a leading candidate by all polls who is, choking the life out of our institutional norms, attacking the DOJ, attacking the FBI, simply because they're not in agreement. They're not in lockstep with what Republicans want. They won't help them pursue fruitless investigations. And so, now there's a problem. We need to clean house. The leaders and the employees of these bureaus that work day in and day out for the American people have only took investigations and daily workmanship. They're playing the hand that they've been dealt. Here you have a former president who comes into office. He was corrupt before he ran for office. Sowing seeds of discord, encouraging violence, refused to show his taxes. No respect for, our patriots who served in uniform. Violating the emoluments clause. Encouraging nepotism in the halls of power. All the things that I've just named can, lead the FBI or the DOJ to have a certain job to do as far as pushing back on violations, on things that go against the law, because no one is above the law. And so here we have the Republican Party wanting to have it both ways again. How do we solve it? That's what we're about here at Soluble. So how do we solve it? This drain on politics now. We have to get our numbers out first and foremost. We have a former president who's by all polls leading the Republican Party in order to, have another stint in power in the Oval Office. And, just to close and to clarify, the Department of Justice, the FBI, is only going where the former president is taking them. If the former president goes towards anything corrupt, anything that is not law-abiding in dealing with classified, information, and encouraging violence, and inciting riots, in dealing in hush money payments, then the DOJ and the FBI has to pursue that. Whether it's on the state or federal level, it has to be dealt with. Or else, democracy slowly starts to die. It slowly starts to be of no effect because there's no respect for the rule of law. So if you have a former president who seems to have no respect for the rule of law, little to no respect, he comes into Washington, and he comes into the Oval Office, and he's running the place like he's a mafia don. instead of the President of the United States of America. So the FBI and the DOJ has to go there. Why? Because the former president has taken them there. This is not, some scavenger hunt investigation where, they're just grasping at straws. You have the president on the phone conversation, talking to Georgia officials and telling them that, that he needs more votes. And he's so brazen because the more he gets away with, the more bolder he gets, the more bolder he becomes. There is a solution. So, the American people need not get discouraged. There is a solution. And that is to, if he rears his ugly head to run again, we have to vote him out again. We have to vote him out again. But trust and believe and know for a certainty that whether it be at the state level or whether it be at the federal level, these institutions of justice, these institutions of law and order are only going where the president is leading them. The former president is leading this. If he's playing fast and loose with classified material, they have to go there. This is a serious threat to national security. So they have to go there. If the president is doing election interference, if the president is, inciting riots to stop a peaceful transfer of power, when he's raised his right hand and took the oath of office to say that he would defend and protect the Constitution, the DOJ and the FBI has to go there. So as Democrats, let's be encouraged by the fact that even though we have our colleagues from the right, talking about cleaning house if they're elected, and that these institutions are corrupt now, don't believe the hype. They're sore losers, and they're steamed because the former president is being investigated, and rightfully so. How can it be so one-sided? As I said, as insane as it is, from a Republican point of view, Hunter Biden, who's never held office at the federal level, who's never raised his right hand and swore to an oath, but yet and still, he is the man, part of a Biden crime family that's been invented or created by Republican politicians, that is going to be the threat to America. The Hunter and the Biden crime family. Now, as I said, this is the pie in the sky that the Republicans are reaching for. They haven't found it yet. They haven't been able to clutch it yet. But they're reaching for it. They're reaching for it. And they keep telling us as the American people that, we almost have it baked. This pie, that we're reaching for, it's almost baked. Just be patient. And we're going to let you taste of it through, the guiltiness that we uncover in the Biden crime family. And, my mouth is watering. My mouth is watering, just like the rest of America, wanting to get a taste of it. Now, as I said, here was Congressman Comer a couple of weeks ago when, asked directly if they had the goods on Joe Biden and or Hunter Biden, and his response was, "I sure hope so." Doesn't this sound a lot like Benghazi, Whitewater, the Rose Law Firm? Secret emails? All of these investigations in the past have come to naught. And as Democrats, we know that they're just distractions. And so, democracy rests in our hands. Democracy rests in our hands. It boils down to a Democratic Party that is for all of America. All of America. No matter, whether you're born here native or whether you immigrated here. The Democratic Party is for all of Americans to have an equal opportunity at achieving the American dream. And the Republicans have a problem with it. Now, to that 90 something plus percentile who vote so heavily Democrat, and when you show up in numbers, we're usually victorious. We have to hold that line because it boils down to, and this is where, what January the 6th, 2021 stems from. This is the Republican Party's basis. This is their push. They won't come out and say it, but this is their push to that 90 something plus percentile and to all Democrats, but that 90 something plus percentile in particular. This comes down to whether you're going to be governed or are you going to do the governing. Now, the Republicans want you permanently governed, to be governed over. They don't want you having a seat at the table, to be part of the process of governing, bringing forth legislation. This is what it boils down to for my fellow Democrats and this 90 something plus percentile people of color, African Americans, who champion the Democratic Party. You have seats at the table. So this is what it boils down to. This is what the big fuss is about. Are you going to be governed? Or are you going to be a part of the process of governing? Shot calling for your neighborhoods, for your districts. The Republicans don't want to see this. And so, you're only going to hear it soluble, to break it down and give it to you, in as best layman terms as we can give it to you. Are you going to be governed? Or are you going to be a part of the process of governing? Seats at the table. Seats at the table. Now, we put MAGA to bed, but it's waking up again, and it's waking up hungry. Can we put it to bed again? We have to. We have no other choice. It's going to move the country forward, and make America, great for all Americans, not just a select few. Now, since we've put MAGA to bed, you don't see Karens coming out in the same numbers. You don't see them coming out in the same force. They're still around, but you don't see them in the same force. You don't see, the alt-right, the hate groups. Excuse me. They've all crawled back under their rocks. With Democratic leadership in America that doesn't tolerate it, that doesn't stand for it. And the Republican Party is silent on these issues. But, by all accounts, or to let them tell it, they're not a racist party. Why don't you see, the prevalence of these groups now under the Biden administration? Because they know that this is not something that the Democrats stand for. The rule of law, human rights for all individuals, giving a woman a right to choose, championing legislation that even helps the woman in the workplace when it comes to things like maternity leave. I have sisters, I have a mother, I have a wife, and I'm a good enough listener to know that, women's bodies, women are complicated. Their bodies are complicated. They're not like us. They birth life. They birth into new generations. Their bodies are complicated. And so, we would be less off instead of better off. We'd be less than as a nation if we don't champion even something as simple as women's rights, which you will find in the Democratic Party. So, as I said, the alt-right groups, gone. The Karens, they're flying under the radar more and more. Police, they're being held accountable. Whether they have their body cameras on or not, they're being held accountable. And America moves forward in a more peaceable way for our society, which, helps things like mental illness to calm, to have us more calm as a society. The Democrats are more ready and willing to attack, the epidemic of mass shootings that we have in this country. Now not only are they dealing with semi-automatic weapons that may or may not be legal, but now we have the ghost gun. That's hard to trace. That you can create, based on a 3D image on the computer screen. So, as I said, we're 2 days out. The goal is to have our political leaders, whether they're on the right or the left, working together, moving towards compromise in order to move America forward for all Americans. The Republican Party is stuck in a time warp. They're too selfish to realize or to understand that, time has moved on and they have to move on with the times. But no, they don't want to do that. They want to go back. And so each and every individual that you will see on this debate stage come Wednesday night did not stand up to the president, in a time where we needed them to. They ran for cover. They looked the other way. Now, that the president has lost election after election after election, he soured on, his fellow Republicans. Not his policy, not his ideals that has pushed them away from the Trump train or to cause them to, leave the Trump train. It's because he can't win elections. And so, we have to take a long look at this. That these men and women are on stage vying for the presidency of the United States. And when they seen a clear and present danger coming from a member of their party, there was little to no pushback. Now you have Governor Christie, Governor Asa Hutchinson. They're coming out now and pushing back against the former president, but it's a Johnny come lately. It's a Johnny come lately. It is too late. He's spoiled rotten now. He doesn't want to hear it. And here he is coming out on Truth Social, true to form. Something that we have moved on from. That, is a terrible example to our children. But here's the president, coming out on Truth Social, which is, his platform now. And, here he is, fresh on the campaign trail with new names, with new nicknames, name calling. Sloppy Chris Christie, DeSanctimonious for Ron DeSantis. Terrible example. You don't see this in the Democratic Party. And so we're not, our position here at Soluble is that it's not that, our Democratic House is pristine and clean. We have things that we need to deal with. First and foremost, we need to be more forceful with our message and putting our message out there and pushing back against the false propaganda that is coming from the right, among other things. We need to stand solid and firm in our belief that America as a nation, as a country, is best governed and championed from the middle class out, to grow our economy, to keep a strong military from the middle class out. And so it starts. It starts on Wednesday night, the Republican primaries, the first of many going into the 2024 election cycle. And, as Democrats, pay attention, play close attention, because at the end of the day, democracy is still at stake because, the Republican Party's policies, their ideas for moving America forward, they've been tried. And we're going to break it down based on what we hear Wednesday night. We're going to, come with opposition that's soluble as to why this doesn't work for us as a country and as a leader in our leadership in our political system. Being governed from the right. We feel like America is best governed, left of center. And of course, we have opposition party that feels otherwise. So let the debates begin. Let the 2024 election cycle officially begin to churn and turn, if you will. And let's pay close attention. Let's listen and, see what's being said, how it may or may not work for us as a country. Try to sort the good from the bad, because we're not here to state that soluble opposition is that everything that is coming from the right is bad. That's not our position. But we have to push back when it comes to what we feel like may be for the welfare of Americans and for the sake of defending democracy. To tell it like it is, to tell it as, we see it, and let's have a lively debate. Let's have a hearty debate. And at the end of the day, when the dust settles, respect the winner and be ready to move forward with the day business of governing in America. That's going to do it for our broadcast here tonight at Soluble. We look forward to the debates that are coming up, to having this discussion with you as, the American electorate, the American voter, because at the end of the day, it is up to and in the hands of we the people. And so, we look forward to, hearing what is coming from the right to, like I say, sort out what may or may not be good for America, what may or may not be bad for America. And we're encouraging, our fellow Democrats to pay attention. And, we're ready to call it as balls and strikes from both sides of the aisle. From both sides of the aisle. But, to my fellow Democrats, please know that it's constantly a work in progress. Democracy is constantly a work in progress. There's no such thing as having a president in the Oval Office and, he's got a 4-year term, but yet his job is done in 2. And the other 2 don't matter because he's done it. No, it's always a work in progress. And that's what we have to understand as Democrats. Don't lose focus on the mission. Be ready to challenge fact from fiction and do what we feel as Democrats is best for the country's sake, regardless of what's going on the other side. But we're ready to govern always with outstretched arms. So that's going to do it for us tonight here at Soluble. We thank you for joining us. Pay attention. Pay attention. The election cycle for 2024 is upon us. What kind of leadership are we going to have? What kind of country are we going to be going forward? At home and abroad. So, everything's at stake as far as 2 opposing ideals for governing the United States of America. We look forward to bringing you fact, Cluing in on the debates. Stay tuned, stay aware, and be ready to rock the vote in 2024. It'll be here before you know it. There's a lot that can happen. That's going to happen. A lot for us to, inform you on, to keep you up on between now and November 2024. And we look forward to breaking down each and every sticking point, each and every thing that we feel like will be bad for us as a country. Keeping you informed in order to solve. Thank you for joining us. This is Soluble signing off. Until we meet again, this is Soluble saying good night and God bless. Thank you.